All right. Well, Don, I'm super excited and I'm honored to have you tonight as part of our group, my We Bleed Green and Gold Facebook group. We have close to 100,000 people that will be watching this over the next few days. And it's exciting to have a Super Bowl 31 champion with us tonight. So thank you for being part of it.
It's good to be here, Jim. And there's a lot of crazy Packer fans out there, so it's always good talking with them, that's for sure.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there. Crazy is the key word. It really is.
Yes, they are.
Fanatics, you know.
Yep.
I love the jersey in the background. Tell me, what significance does that jersey mean to you? Is that a Super Bowl jersey that you won, or what's that jersey that you have back there?
Yeah, that's actually the jersey and the gloves that I wore in Super Bowl 31.
Nice.
And after being on 4 Super Bowl teams with the Buffalo Bills and coming away empty, it felt great to finally win one. So I hung that jersey up here in the den.
Remind me, I told you I've been watching you for some time. Everybody knows of Don Speedy Beebe, and you've been to, well, legitimately, has it been 6 Super Bowls, but because of one of them, you weren't actually able to attend it because of an injury. Is that correct?
Actually, I was on 6 Super Bowl teams, played the whole year of those 6 years, and then right before the first Buffalo Super Bowl, Super Bowl 25, I had broke my leg. And I broke my leg December 23rd. Okay, so it was literally right before the playoff run in the Super Bowl. And then the last Super Bowl with the Packers, Super Bowl 32 against Denver, I had pulled my hamstring during the playoff run. I was healthy, was ready to play and everything like that, but Coach Holmgren decided that he wasn't going to play me in Super Bowl 32. So I actually was healthy enough to play in Super Bowl 32, but Mike chose not to play me.
Okay.
So I played in 4, but was on 6 Super Bowl roster and teams.
I was sharing with I have a bunch of moderators that moderate this group, and I was sharing with them the amount of respect that I have for Jim Kelly as a quarterback, fighting his cancer scare. I got to meet him less than a year ago, and what an incredible guy. Do you still have a connection with a lot of the players that you've played with in the past, and how was Jim Kelly to play with?
Well, the answer to that is yes. Obviously, we talk, and spending 6 years with the Bills, that's a lot of years to spend with some guys, and to go to 4 Super Bowls. Really, we played, in that 4-year stretch, we actually played 5 seasons. You count all the extra playoff games that we played during that 4-year stretch. It was actually 5 years in 4. With that being said, Jim, yeah, we're still very close. And I talk to those guys a lot. And Jim, after, beating cancer 3 times now, losing a child at 8.5 years old, he lost his son. And, he's been through a lot. And he's probably one of the most loyal people I've ever known.
Wow.
In sport or out of sport. And just to give you an example of Jim Kelly. So we win the Super Bowl with the Pack. And 1 month later, I lost one of my best friends from high school. He got hit by a drunk driver, and he was shoved into the trunk of his car, and he didn't make it. And he had 2 small boys, a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old. And so a month went by or so, and I wanted to do something for his 2 small boys, and he was big into education. So I wanted to run a football camp, a 1-day deal, and raise as much money as I could. So the first person I call is Jim Kelly. Picks up the phone. He said, "Beebs, what's up?" I said, I told him the story and everything like that. And he said, "Oh, Beebs," he says, "I'm going to be in Miami." He says, "I'm not getting back until, that Sunday." And the deal was going to be on Saturday. I had already made the day when the camp would be. Long story short, he said, "Beebs, let me call you back in about 10 minutes. Calls me back 10 minutes. He says, "Look, I'm going to catch the next flight out of Miami that day. I'm going to get home, change, shower, and take the next flight out to Chicago. Just pick me up. I'll be there for the camp." I mean, who does that, right? So I had Jim Kelly, Desmond Howard, and Reggie White come to the camp. We raised $24,000 for those 2 small boys.
Wow, that's incredible. Just those names right there that you speak about, such incredible people. Reggie White, a legend. Desmond
Yeah.
Howard, your MVP of Super Bowl, 31, incredible. And then Jim Kelly
Yeah.
himself is
Yeah.
awesome. So,
Yeah. They don't get any better. Right.
yeah, exactly. Now, so I just want to update a little bit. You played with the Bills, I believe, from 89 to 94. Is that about right?
Yep. 6 years.
Okay. And you were part of the Carolina Panthers inaugural season,
I was 95. Yeah.
95. That
Yeah.
right there is
So,
incredible.
yeah, what happened there was Bill Polian had left Buffalo and went down to Carolina. He was the first general manager of the Carolina Panthers. And obviously, he was the guy that drafted me when I was in Buffalo in '89. He was there all 6 years there. So he goes down to Carolina, starts to do franchise, and he takes down me, Frank Reich, and Pete Metzlars. And so we went down there for 1 year, and then it was a great year for a franchise. We were 8-8, and it was fun. But I wanted to go to a team that was going to win a Super Bowl, and so we got out of Carolina after 1 year, pretty much, and then landed up in Green Bay, and was very fortunate to go to 2 more Super Bowls.
Awesome. Playing with Mr. Brett Favre, I've got to meet Brett twice.
Yeah.
I'm going to meet him in September again. They just announced that he's going to be doing a signing in Green Bay again. How many fingers did he hurt in the time that he threw the ball to you?
Okay, you see that one, the ring finger?
Yeah.
That's Favreism.
Wow.
So I tried to catch a hitch route, and next thing I know, my finger's in 3 different places, So I had to, and that happened in August. And it just wasn't getting better, and I kept taping it and everything like this. Next thing I know, it's October, and now we're making a run here, and my finger was really starting to bother me. So I finally went and got an X-ray, and sure enough, it was fractured. I played all those months with a fractured finger, and they told me then, they said, you're going to need surgery, major surgery for a finger. Obviously, it's not that major of a surgery, but so they had to cut me open. They cut me open here and cut me there. But I told them, I said, obviously, I'm not going to do it during that season. I'm going to have to wait till the end of the year. And so we did the surgery right after the Super Bowl. But that's what happens when you play with Brett, So what I used to get ready for Brett and Jim too, because Jim could throw pretty hard as well, is I bought a jugs machine my rookie year. And then as my season went on, and then once I got to Brett, I used to catch a ball out of jugs standing, probably 12 inches to where the ball sits in the jug machine. I would stand 12 inches away and catch balls at 65 miles an hour. Now, I would not recommend anybody going out there and trying this, but I would wear a helmet and make sure my face was out of the way. And what it would do is it would break down all the nerves in my finger, okay? And it would strengthen my hands at the same time. Because when you catch a missile from Brett, you got to have really soft hands, but really strong hands at the same time. So that was a good drill. And now my son does that same drill, because obviously, he plays with Minnesota now. But
right.
So he does those same drills as I used to do.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Do you plan on going? I just mentioned Favre in September 15th, Vikings versus the Packers, and it's going to be alumni weekend. Do you plan on being out there?
I would love to. I'm a head football coach now at Aurora University, and that with that comes a lot of responsibility. This is my first go around at the college level. I was a high school coach for 14 years, and I wanted to be around my kids, and I have 3 daughters and Chad, so I wanted to be around the high school that I was going to coaching as well. But, now that I'm at the college level, it's going to be hard for me to get away. I probably will not be able to make that. But I'm going to make the bye weekend game against the Bears. It's right here at Soldier Field, and they happen to be my bye week, so that worked out great.
Oh, that's cool.
And then when the season ends, I'll go up there and watch the end of the year. So I'll see the Pack when they're in Minnesota at the end of the year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me if you can. Everybody wants to know, because I asked my group, I said, what would be the number one question if you had to ask Don Beebe? And of course, they all wanted to know, how was it playing with Reggie White? What kind of influence was he on you? And then just that feeling of you went to, Super Bowls with the Buffalo Bills. for many times, you know, and did not accomplish it. But when you went to the Packers, finally getting that Super Bowl and holding that trophy, what did that mean to you? What was the feeling like to be able to actually do that? So it's a two-part question.
Sure. I'll tackle the first one first. Reggie, man, I loved Reggie, man. Reggie was just anybody that played with Reggie or knew Reggie loved not the player, the person. You know, when I first got to Green Bay, it was funny. It was within the first few weeks that I was there, and they're timing guys in the 40-yard dash in the Don Hudson Center. I was 31 years old. Okay, so we're timing guys in the 40, and on that day I ran a 4.25, and Billy Schrader ran a 4.3 something. Brian Satterfield ran a 4.41, and Travis Jervey ran a 4.38. So the top 4 times were all white guys. So we got into the locker room, and Reggie stands up and he goes, "Boys, this is the most embarrassing moment in Black history. 4 guys had the fastest 40 times." And this is my first kind of engaging with Reggie, you know. Oh my gosh, man, I just fell in love with the guy, and we just hit it off. I mean, you talk about small and white, big and black, urban America. I grew up in, you know, kind of the country, and here we are. We're just great friends. We were in Bible study together. I mean, Saturday night, I used to spend every Saturday night before the games in his room, you know, because he lived out his faith. You know, he was a man of faith, and he lived it. And I admired him for that. You know, a lot of guys say they are, and then they're not really living it out. You know, Reggie was true as he can get. And I had a really long conversation a week before he passed, about an hour and a half. We talked for a long time. And it was really a deep conversation. I'll never forget that conversation that we have. And I miss him. You know, he's a good man.
That's incredible. It's incredible. So second part, how was that feeling of holding that trophy after losing, you know, so many Super Bowls?
Yeah. You know, I was a safety guy, so I was 10 yards standing behind Brett. And, you know, watching, I'll never forget it, man. And it gives me chills just sitting here in my den. I'm 55 years old, you know. And, you know, seeing those last 10 seconds tick off, knowing that I was finally going to win this crazy, stupid game, you know. And as soon as it ticked, that thing went off. And before everything got to him, because I knew all the attention was going to run to him with the reporters and everything, I walked up to him and tapped him and I said, "Hey, Brett, you know, can I have that ball?" You know, and he turned around and said, "Bees, man, nobody deserves it more than you." Knowing obviously that I losing 4, you know, he gave me that ball, and I literally, when I got it, Jim, I felt really kind of guilty, to be honest with you. I mean, it was euphoria and I felt great, but at the same time, I was like, dude, why me, man? All the people, all my teammates, you know, Jim Kelly, Marv Levy, all my friends in Buffalo, I wish they could have experienced that as well. And why was I the only one? And so there was part of me that felt really guilty that I got to be chosen to be that guy. So I went over, I gave the game ball to my wife and Chad. I carried Chad off the field. He was 2 years old, believe it or not. And then my oldest, Amanda, she was 5 years old. And I got to carry them off the field. And it was, golly, man, Jim, it don't get any better than that feeling right there.
I bet. Man, I got to tell you, there's so many of us, including myself, that you lived the dream that many of us as kids, I played high school football, you know, Pop Warner and that kind of stuff. You've lived the dream of so many of us, man. And it is just incredible because now there's so many of us that look up to you. You know, I want to tell you, a good friend of mine is a huge a fan of yours. His name is Kevin Bowes. And I told him I would mention you to him. And there's another guy by the name of Philip Sweet. If you could just give a shout out to Philip and Kevin and, you know, send a little message to them, I would appreciate it if you can.
Well, Philip and Kevin, first of all, I appreciate you know, being fans. I don't really I don't look at myself as that type of person that I have fans, you know, because I'm just like everybody else. I'm just a common guy that just loves to fish and love to coach kids, you know. But for Kevin and Philip, I appreciate that, and all the other people out there that are listening, that are Packer fans and that are fans of me maybe. I'm humbled by that. All I would tell them is that, you know, in life, don't ever give up. You just never know the end result until it happens. And so if you give everything you got, you can live with the end result if you do that. Yeah, so I use obviously the Leon Let play all the time, and it's just a great example of never giving up. And for me, I could have gave up so many times in life, but when it came to sports, and I got no regrets, man. I gave everything I could, every minute that I could. At least I think I did. And I played the game the way it should be played. And now I coach the same way.
Incredible. I got to bring up two things. I don't want to keep you all night because time goes by so quick when we do this, but there's two things I got to bring up. One is when you had your 200-yard game. Incredible. It seemed like you couldn't do anything wrong with that game. Would that be your highlight for you in your career, or would it be that Super Bowl?
It's certainly a top 3 or 4. I had 4 touchdowns against the Steelers my third year in the league when I was in Buffalo. Because scoring touchdowns, when it's funny because I think of the Pittsburgh game and scoring touchdowns, you realize what's going on. I mean, you score 4 touchdowns, you're going to know it, right?
Yeah.
But that Monday night, I had no idea what had happened. I mean, Lynn Swan, who was working the sideline for Monday Night Football at that time, come running out to me after the game was over, and he goes, and I've had conversations with Lynn, and I really like Lynn, and he goes, Bees, come here, man. I said, what? He goes, do you realize what you did tonight? I said, no, we won. He goes, no, you personally, do you know what you did? I said, no, I have no idea. He says, this is the 3rd largest yardage in a game and the most at Lambeau Field at that time. I don't know if that's ever been broken, but he said, you had 11 catches for 220 yards. I was like, you're kidding me, right? 11 for 220? And then the first thought in my mind was, man, what about the other ones I could have had? I could have had 300. But that's just me. You're always thinking, bigger and better. But no, it was one of those nights. It was great. I felt bad that Brooksy got hurt on the first play and he was out, and I knew we were going to go to the Super Bowl. I just knew it. And I hated knowing that Brooksy wasn't going to be in the playoff run and in the Super Bowl, because I had to deal with that already. Our first Super Bowl in Buffalo, like I said, and I didn't want him to have to miss that. And so I really felt bad for him.
Well, it was an incredible game, I'll tell you that. But I have to, and I'm a huge Green Bay Packer fan, but I have to tell you that watching you with the Buffalo Bills run down Leon Lett, knock that ball out of his hand. I am not a Dallas Cowboys fan. The score was like 52 to something at that time. And if he would have scored, thank goodness, because of you, he was not. That would have been the highest scoring football game or Super Bowl game ever. And because of you, you knocked it out of his hands. It became a touchback. The game ended 52 to 17 or something like that. But because of you and in your quickness running down there, knocking the ball out of his hand, that was an incredible thing for us to watch. And I think everybody kind of realized in that game, you never give up on anything. The score could be 52 to 17, and you still gave it 100% effort, ran down there, knocked the ball out of his hand, and gave it a complete, your everything. How did that feel to you? It seemed like you had a little anger in you at that point, and you were not going to give up for anything.
Yeah, it did feel good. I did feel good. I know that. It was 217. I felt awful. You watch my reaction after it's over. He kneels down and kind of knees me in the head. Accidentally on me. Right. I got up, adjusted my face, and I was mad. 52-17. With 4 minutes left to go in the game. And this is our third one. Here's kind of the here's kind of thing. Here we are 26 years later, roughly 27 years, whatever it is now. And we're still talking about this crazy play. I mean, it's had that much of an impact on people. And the funny thing is, Jim, is still every single day, and I mean this, every day I get at least one fan mail letter talking about that play. For 27 straight years. I don't know if I've ever had a day where I haven't gotten some fan mail letter from somebody across the country. And it's teachers and coaches. And the one that's meant the most to me is parents, especially fathers. And I kept in my drawer over here about 30 or 40 of them. And one specifically really, and there's several of them, but this one really hit home. And I was reading it, and I got this letter probably, I want to say a month after the Super Bowl, 2 months maybe. And he's basically sharing the story of how he never had a great relationship with his son. And the kid was 13 years old. And they're just laying on the couch watching the game, another blowout, he said. And at the end of the game, I run him down. And then the kid pops up and he goes, "Dad, is that what you mean about never giving up?" And he said, and Donnie, and I know this guy was crying in this letter, right? I just know it. And he said, "Don, for the first time in his life, I had a meaningful conversation with my son. And I just want to say thanks." And after I read that, I already kind of knew why I was there in the first place. It wasn't really for me. It was for the platform that I had. Is it really hit home then that, wow, what a platform I have to so many people, and especially kids out there and dads that can impact them. And here I'm just playing a crazy game of football. And we're talking about life. This changes the relationship of a father and a son. I mean, that's just crazy. Yeah. And so it really hit home for me. And I knew, that for the rest of my life that I wanted to use the platform that I have to share, to people, and never giving up is obviously my story. And so when I stand on stages and I speak publicly, and I do a lot of it, when I talk about never giving up, people are like, they believe it. You get standing ovations. It's kind of like the Rudy story, Yeah. And so now, it's turned into a book, and now that book is turning into a possible movie. And to me, all I did was run down Leon Lett. I was just nuts, how much traction that play has gotten. And this is the last thing I'll say in that play is I'm a faith guy, and I've lived my whole life that way. And I'll never forget, it was a beautiful day in Pasadena. And this is the place that I dreamed of as a young boy in mom's backyard, Pasadena. And I'm there. And about an hour before the game, I went out and I was praying at the midfield. And all I really said was, "Let me glorify your name more than mine. I mean, more than any other game, Lord. Let me just glorify your name more than mine." Because I was tired of me, And so sure enough, I got up, I was walking off the field, and Jim, I got to tell you, I just knew I was going to score the winning touchdown to win that game. Wow. I knew I was going to score the touchdown. But no, God gave me Leon Lett play. And the reason he did is because if I was to stand on stages and talk about it right here with you, and I would have scored the touchdown to win Super Bowl 27, it wouldn't have had near the impact that this play has. Because how many people can relate scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl? Hardly any, right?
Right.
But how many can relate to the Leon Lett play? Everybody. Opportunity to give up or not give up. And it just gives me a great platform to speak on never giving up.
That's incredible. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it. I love that you shared that with us. And it is those kind of motivation. And I don't know if you realize it or not, that helps people because of the world that is constantly changing and the things that go on constantly. It's that kind of motivation that you just shared with us that will lead us through our tough times. So thank you. And most importantly, you represent what Vince Lombardi talked about many years ago. And that was, number one, putting your faith, number one in your life, then your family, then the Green Bay Packers. And you do a great job in representing that. And it's followed you throughout your career, even what you're doing now with your coaching at Aurora.
Yeah. I've lived by the four faiths. Faith, number one. Family, number two. Friends, number three. And football, number four. There you go. And that priority's never changed. And it never will. And for me, I'm just a common guy like anybody else. I don't look like an athlete, or at least certainly a professional athlete. So people look at me and I just look like a common man. And I think it gives me a great latitude to speak to people of just never giving up. Because if I can make it, why can't you?
Yeah.
And it doesn't be football. It could be anything. If my son can make it, why can't you? What makes us tick is that, one, we don't take no for an answer, and two, we just never give up. And we're going to outwork that other guy that wants your job. So we're just going to go take it from him. And there's a lot of guys, Jim, that are more talented than I was. And I was raised on character and hard work, and that always pays off.
That's awesome. How's Chad doing over there in Minnesota? We're not big Minnesota fans, but we love Chad. How's he doing over there with Minnesota? He's been with them since 2018, hasn't he?
He just started last year. Matter of fact, his story, and I'll make this really, really short. He got invited because the strength conditioning coach at Northern Illinois had a friend that was the Minnesota Viking scout. And they talked, and he told him about Chad, and he watched his film. He brought him into a rookie minicamp. Okay, those guys don't make the team, right? He goes in. He had to pay his own way. He's the last guy in the totem pole. He lands up after 3 days, getting a 3-year contract, get invited to camp, goes to camp as a 12th receiver out of 12. Next thing you know, he makes the practice squad. And after 5-6 weeks, Mike Zimmer says, we can't guard him in practice. We might as well activate him. So they activated him. Then he pulled his hamstring, which is unfortunate. But right now, penciled in, if he stays healthy, Jim, I mean, they got him right now penciled as the third receiver and the punt returner. So it's just an amazing story how far he's come. And I will say this, he's a better wide receiver than I was. I could really run, but skill-wise, as far as catching balls and running routes, he's way advanced than I was.
Wow, that's incredible. And you even, I think you ran back one kickoff return for a touchdown, didn't you?
Yeah, against the Bears. Wasn't that fun? Against the Bears.
Always, you got to appreciate anything that happens if you could beat the Bears and have some kind of great highlight like that.
No doubt.
That's awesome. Well, I don't want to keep you too much tonight, but if you were to share, if you had anything, and you've already shared a little bit with us in regards to your faith and your beliefs, what other messages would you share about life in regards to God, the Packers, your family, anything that you would want to share? Or do you have any kind of organizations? Because I always like to kind of reach out, and I've gone, and helped promote Players Congress with retired football players or anything like that. Do you have anything out there that you want to bring to attention to people to say, hey, just keep this on your radar in any aspect, if it's helping a friend or a family member? Because I always tell people in our group, life is the things that make me happy in life is I have 4 kids. My kids are everything to me. But if I'm not given in some kind of way, I'm not living, Yeah. So if you had some kind of additional message that you wanted to share with anybody, any kind of organization to look out for, anything, what would that be?
Well, first of all, I'm not one to promote things that I do and stuff of that nature, so I won't.
Okay.
I will say is this, Jim, is life is about relationships, okay? Relationships with God, your relationship with your wife or your husband, relationship with your kids. Time is a precious thing, very precious thing, and it goes by so fast. And when people die and they leave and on their dying bed, they don't talk about all the material things they have or have. They talk about the relationships, okay, and how much they will miss them, and how much I wish I would have spent more time, or I wish I would have done. I wish I loved. It comes down to do it now. Do it now. Don't ever burn a bridge with anybody, no matter how bad the relationship is or the circumstances is. I will never burn a bridge. Okay, I'll just move on. So that is what I would recommend to somebody is to live life with the people around you, small circles, even the big circles, just treating them right. There's an old saying biblically that you want to be treated just like you treat people. So I want to treat people the way that, and in the country that we live in now is becoming so divided. You're either this or you're that, right? And to me, what does it really matter what somebody else thinks about you? All that matters is what he thinks, and that's how I live my life. And if you keep that in perspective, you're going to be a lot funner to be around. Okay, And two, you're just going to have a whole lot more peace and joy. And I just don't want to live my life the other way.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. That means a lot. That means a lot to me. Don, I am completely honored that you've been able to do this with our group tonight. You're an inspiration to us all. I really mean that with all my heart. And thank you for your time. I always ask, I've asked every single person that I've gone live with, I always ask to end it in one kind of way. And there's 3 words that we all know that starts with go and ends with go. I ask you if you could give me one thing. Could you end this live with us tonight with 3 simple words?
Yeah. Well, let me even do better than that, Jim. So I'm going to tell you one last story. Ready?
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. We just win Super Bowl 31. We fly back in to Green Bay, and it's freezing. And there's hundreds of thousands of people lined up on the streets of Green Bay, and we're in a bus that has no windows. Okay. And a lot of guys didn't bring any coats. I was fortunate to be one that I did have a coat. So we're freezing, right? So we get back to the locker room, and a lot of guys just wanted to go home. And the marketing guy comes into the locker room and says, listen, we got 60-some thousand people in the stadium that want to see a few of you guys. And a lot of guys are like, we're out of here. No way, man. And I'm like, I'll go. And so me, Reggie, and there's a couple other guys. I can't remember who some of the other ones were. Leroy Butler was one of them. We're going to go out there. And so I finally get the mic. I don't know if you remember this or not. Do you remember what I said?
I don't.
Okay. You led me into it. And I said, everybody, I got one thing to say. Go, Pack, go. Go, Pack, go. Okay. And then next thing you know, we start screaming what you just started saying. And then I went into repeat. 1,000 people singing repeat, go, Pack, go. I'm telling you, look at those things. They're just standing up on mine. So anyway, go, Pack, go is no doubt. I love that song.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Don, thank you for your time, man. I know that you've made a lot of Packer fans happy tonight. And go, Pack, go. And never know, I might bug you again. We'll do it again someday. You never know.
Sounds good, Jim. Anytime.
All right. Thank you, man, and have a great night.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Bye-bye.